And welcome everybody to the Daily Space Weather. Guess what? Flaring's back. We had some M-class events and some more new sunspots showing up on the eastern limb. We'll tell you all about it and lots more tonight at the Smash News Network, least busted name in news. Welcome to the Daily Space Weather Show. If you like stargazing, if you like advanced stargazing, you've come to the right place. This is a 24-hour video from SDO. We've got some spectacular CMEs, a trans-equatorial coronal hole, and plenty more to cover, including a possible stratospheric volcanic eruption. Let's take a little closer look at this glowing ball of joy around which Earth orbits. Most of the activity has been in the southern hemisphere. So before we take a look at the flare-producing zones, how about a quick look at this filament? Great filament there, becoming a prominence over at the southwestern limb. And you will definitely see a lot of filaments on the Earth-facing portion of the solar disk. There's one that's many hundreds of thousands of kilometers in length, right below our Earth scale there. An absolutely gigantic plasma filament, and also at least one more new sunspot has risen up here in the northeast. So let's take a look at the southeast. That's where the real action has been. Both of those M-class flares did emanate from that area. So two new sunspots just showed up down there. One we covered yesterday, and one was not visible yet yesterday. And don't forget to press the like button, folks. If you haven't pressed like yet, I'm afraid I'm going to have to request that you press like. Otherwise, we'll have to pause on this video forever. And by the way, happy All Saints Day. You know, tomorrow is All Souls Day, so if you don't want to celebrate All Saints Day, tomorrow's All Souls Day. That's for all souls. It's like the Protestant version of the Catholic holiday, All Saints Day. Anyway, press the like button, or your soul won't be very saintly, will it? Seriously, though, thanks to our YouTube subscribers. Congratulations on realizing the channel exists. If you're new to the channel, press the subscribe button. There is no competition for the Daily Space Weather Show, so you've found it. Don't miss any of the content. Yeah, so let's talk about ways to support the channel. One of the ways is by pressing like, share, subscribe, comment, things like that. So please do that. But also, visit the links in the description. One of them is to smashomash.com. And welcome to the Neo-Renaissance. That is the tagline for our homepage. Why? Because in 2019, a crack YouTube unit was sent to social media prison for a crime we did not commit. We promptly escaped a maximum security social media stockade of the internet underground, where we survive as producers of fortune. If you have a problem, if no one else can help, and if you can find the videos, maybe you can hire the Smash team. Did you know that we're in the process of writing a paper that explains the solar sunspot cycles? Yeah, I've come up with the only plausible theory that's really known. So help us out with clicks, maybe. You'll find links below the video to the Amazon shop, a paid affiliate. Also the Hemp Lucid shop, another paid affiliate. Another paid affiliate is our Redbubble shop. One of our taglines is, "We'll keep an eye on it." So one of our merch products has that tagline, along with an ultra-high resolution SDO image of the closest star. We'll keep an eye on it. It's also got the YouTube URL. And it even has the time and date stamps from SDO 171 angstroms. So yeah, tell your friends and foes that you're into heliophysics and astronomy and so on. Again, there's no better star to be gazing at than the closest one. It's pretty exciting. We're delighted to bring you yet another Daily Space Weather video. So help us out perhaps that way with some sweet merch there, an ultra-high res image of the closest star. Anyway, one other way to help out the channel, another paid endorsement, is the Smash Team site. So if you're not getting notifications on YouTube, You'd like to get email notifications? Well, we came up with that. Actually, I think one of our viewers came up with it. So if you're not getting if you're not getting notifications on YouTube or whatever, if our videos are mysteriously vanishing from your subscription list, or if you've been mysteriously unsubscribed, just go sign up for email alerts over at smashomash.com/smashteam, or perhaps help support the channel even further by becoming a silver or a gold annual paid up subscriber. There is, of course, additional content there as well at smashomash.com/smashteam. The official subscription services site of the Smash News Network, least busted name in news. So again, we have, really it's 3 new groups in the East. So there's one that just rose up here. There's a second one behind this. So that's a sunspot group, and then there's a second sunspot group there. We've also got some growth happening in the northwestern limb. Besides that, mostly stability. So another uptick in sunspots is coming, likely by tomorrow's daily space weather video. There is our colorized magnetogram. That is Halloween plus November to date. So October 31st and November 1st so far. And let's talk volcanoes. Guess what? Kluchevskoy has produced a 46,000-foot plume of volcanic ash. And check out those lenticular clouds hanging around. Just spectacular imagery there of the Kamchatka Peninsula. Yeah, 46,000-foot volcanic ash plume there coming out of Kluchevskoy. It is toying with the stratospheric barrier at that point. So perhaps some volcanic ash and other aerosols and dust, things like carbonyl sulfide, making their way certainly close to the tropopause. So Kluchevskoy, definitely on the list. Also, additional seismic unrest happening below the Reykjanes Peninsula there. So Iceland continues to see an uptick in seismic activity. There could be another, maybe even a more significant volcano coming to Iceland. So lots of write-ups there on volcanodiscovery.com about the Reykjanes Peninsula. Again, Kluchevskoy is producing a 46,000-foot plume of volcanic ash. It's a flight level 460. Don't try to pole vault that caldera. That is indeed a dramatic Vulcanian-sized ash column. Abiko also erupting, 9,000-foot ash plume there. 8,000-foot ash plume from Sakurajima, Mayan, 9,000-foot ash plume. 6,000-foot ash plume over Luitolo. Semaru exploding, flight level 140. It's a 14,000-foot ash plume. Dakono only half that size at 7,000 feet. As Dakono explodes, Shishildin. Volcanic activity there has declined over the past few weeks. The aviation alert has been lowered to yellow. Popocatépetl exploding, 24,000-foot ash plume over central Mexico. Sangay exploding, 19,000-foot ash plume over Ecuador from Sangay. 15,000-foot ash plume from Revenador over that same nation. Sabancaya exploding, flight level 240. It's a 24,000-foot plume of volcanic ash over Peru. So don't pole vault the caldera. Anyway, next, earthquakes. And a 6+ magnitude came in while we did show prep. Check it out. There's where it was, right near Kupang. Kupang went wabang. Just less than an hour ago. That was at 21:04 Universal Time. A 6.0 magnitude quake there, right at the coast of Indonesia. Anyway, these are the quakes of a 5 or greater magnitude for the past 24 hours, starting out with a Loyalty Islands quake there. So quite a bit of activity there in the Western Pacific. That 5.1 was at 22:04 Universal Time yesterday evening. Santa Cruz Islands had a 5.2. That's up there north of Fiji. That 5.2 was at 6:51 this morning. And then near to Tonga, we had a 5.1 at 10:15 Universal Time this morning. India had a 5.1 at 12:51. Indonesia had a 5.1 foreshock at 1407. And then finally a 6.1 at Indonesia. And that rounds out our list. And here are the past 24 hours in SDO 304 angstroms. One of the classic wavelengths, you can see that one of those filaments erupting there. There was actually 2 major coronal mass ejections. We'll get to it. And let us know in the comments if you think they are earthly directed. We will certainly show you what we think. First, a zoom in on the equator. So a prime example of how sunspots not even yet visible can produce M-class flares. M-class flares are back, y'all. And let's talk solar stats. So, first of all, the 10.7 centimeter radial flux is now all the way up to 159 solar flux units. Yeah, 159 is the new F107 number. It comes out of the upper chromosphere and lower corona, right about there, the transition region. The area in between the photosphere and the uppermost corona. There is the 1 year graph of the radial flux. It has to be updated. It is actually up here at 159. The red line is a sunspot number, which will also climb a bit more by tomorrow. So here's the Space Weather Enthusiast dashboard. NOAA's not forecasting any geomagnetic storms or geomagnetic unrest. Expecting nothing but calm conditions over the next 2 days. And the geospace magnetosphere movies are down for the count. Look at those old date stamps. 1650 universal time, yesterday, before we even made yesterday's video. The ground magnetic perturbations map is not doing any better. Those are down. KP index is currently at 1.33. It is a geomagnetically calm condition here at the Smash News Network, least busted name in news. KP index is a global average of geomagnetism. And again, quite calm. Moving to the solar wind, here's what the ACE is currently measuring. We'll call out the readings from the Discovery. The Discover, I should say. Discover is showing about 6 protons per cubic centimeter. Make it 7. Make it 6. 5.7 protons per cubic centimeter for the solar wind density. Solar wind velocity here still slightly elevated at 463 kilometers per second. Again, geomagnetic calm conditions. There are the GOES magnetometers. Nothing special happening there. No geomagnetic storm events. No solar energetic particles, which we will get to. First, the top view ecliptic plane field plot. And things are calming down a little bit there in the east. So we still may see significant sunspots growing in the eastern quadrant, but at the moment, no major changes going as far as sector boundary crossings. So North Pole current sheet is headed this way, and it's looking pretty steady out there to the east. Next line of sight field plot. Here the solar B field is depicted in blue. That's the field that goes through the magnet, that magnet being the sun. Photosphere magnetism is shown in grayscale. That's the gong magnetogram. Then you've got the polar fields in green for north and red for south. So that's what's going on as far as fields, both at the photosphere and the corona level. Let's take a brief look at the line of sight ecliptic plane field plot. There you go. And again, things are much steadier behind the eastern limb than they were. So there is more activity that could be rising soon. We'll keep you posted on that. Next, coronal holes. We've got some major South Pole-oriented coronal holes here on the Earth-facing portion of the solar disk. Let's bring up the last image. So there it is. And what do we have? Let's take a look at SDO. So these are south. These are south. And these over here are north. So that is what's going on. And how about a little closer view of that transequatorial coronal hole in the eastern hemisphere? And you can also see one of those filament eruptions, which happened while we created yesterday's video. So right there, you can see that filament blasting off. That did form a coronal mass ejection, and we'll cover it. However, first, it's time to cover sunspots. So here's the sunspot number rising to just about exactly where we called it yesterday. It's at about 125 or 126, something like that. Sunspot number about 126 at the moment. And here is our flare probability monitor and scoreboard. And you can see the likelihood of flares going way up. What's up with that? Oh, this 3474 is still remaining magnetically complex. Also, this group up here, 3472, has grown. So that might put it in a different class. I still say the most likely place for a large flare is going to remain down here in the southeast. This is still an area of note. And even these two could be areas to see some solar flares. So we've got magnetically complex sunspots. And let's take a look at them from the perspective of SDO. There you go. There's 94 angstroms along with the SDO continuum. Again, 3 new sunspot groups have risen in the east. There's the continuum without 94 angstroms. So sunspot number will be, let's see, it'll be approaching, sunspot number should be about 140 by tomorrow's video, assuming none of those groups rapidly decline. Oh, that group up there is looking like it's still legit too. That one might get renamed. I don't know. So there could be a 4th new sunspot group up there. Expecting sunspot number to be like 140 to 150 by tomorrow. Next, we'll talk about solar flares and SEPs, solar energetic particle events. Those are super exciting. However, we don't have any. It's been flatlined for weeks. No spikes in the proton flux. However, as far as X-rays goes, as far as the X-rays go, we have seen some M-class events. An M1.37 was the largest, and an M1.14 was the other M-class flare. The average X-ray flux over the past 24 hours was about a C-class level. Maybe even more, maybe like a C3. I would say about a C2.5 has been the background flux for the past 24 hours. So coming way up from quite a quiet period indeed. And we've got some spectacular close-ups today. There is SDO 131 plus 94 angstroms. And we'll be focusing on that southeastern limb. There's a little closer view of that. Pretty sweet, right? And if that wasn't close enough for you, here's perhaps too close for comfort. Hopefully you're viewing that on a 90-inch television. So flares are back. And before we get to CMEs, let's take a brief moment here to check and see what's going on over my head. So that's what's going on over Lehigh Valley, Pennsylvania. Let me press now to get the... There we go. The sun just making its way over the horizon there. That's our star chart from skyandtelescope.org. You may see Saturn if you're viewing the early evening skies. And later you'll see Jupiter rising if you're out there later, followed by the moon, being chased by the Gemini twins, Castor and Pollux. Finally, in the morning sky, you might see Venus, the 3rd brightest object visible from planet Earth. Next, a solar system forecast. Here's where things are today. We'll advance this 1 week. Happy All Souls Day. That's tomorrow. And there's where things will be on the 8th. November 8th. We will have a crescent waning moon by then as we approach the November new moon. Next, the annular eclipse over Factory Butte in Utah. Looks like an awesome place to go mountain biking. What do you think? So there is the annular eclipse. Now keep in mind those sun star, that flaring you see around the sun, those are actually artificial. That's caused by the camera. And the moon has been brightened in those images. But that's the astronomy photo of the day. The annular eclipse over Factory Butte, Utah. Good stuff. Also a sundog illuminated there. You can see that cloud with its ice crystals creating some prismatic coloration there. apod.nasa.gov if you want to check it out on your own. And it's time to get to CMEs. Yeah, CMEs. It's exciting stuff. So here are yesterday's, and you can see that one out of the north. And then right at the end, you'll see one coming out of the south. Actually, one out of the east. Anyway, that's 98 frames from yesterday. And today's frames will start out exciting. So here are today's 63 frames. And November kicked off with 2 significant coronal mass ejections. Looks like we may have some missing data there, so let's just move on. So there is the Soho Lasco C2 NC3. And let's get a little closer there. This is from the Integrated Space Weather Analysis Center. We'll let that play through. The C2 on the left is a little bit ahead of the C3 on the right. So there you can see it looks like almost like a halo eruption there. But what it is 2 separate CMEs, one coming out of the east and a second one coming out of the south. Are either of them containing earthly directed components? Well, we'll cover it. Here's a great view from Lasco C3. And before we cut to our custom coronagraphs, let's take a look at stereo A, located right here, just a few degrees to the west of Earth. Difference imagery on the right, raw coronagraph on the left. So 2 events going off there. Again, one from the east, one from the south. Fantastic views there from stereo A's Core 2 coronagraph. And the difference imagery also quite nice. So here come our custom views. It's a 24-hour video with 193 angstroms SDO. Soho Lasco C3 in blue and C2 in red. And it might look like an earthly directed CME. However, not all things are as they appear. It's 2 separate events. So the one from the east is actually slightly behind the solar limb. And the one from the south is well off to Earth's south. So I do not anticipate either of those to be earthly directed. Just another spectacular light show there. Courtesy of El Sol. And here we've zoomed all the way in just to show 193 angstroms. You should see that filament releasing right at the beginning of the movie, right after it resets, right there. You can see that filament making its way off to the south. It looks like it is too far to the south to have any earthly directed components. Here it goes one more time. And before we get to bonus features, let's move on to filaments. Yeah, filaments. They're important, right? Sometimes they turn into coronal mass ejections, and look at the massive filaments there. I'm forgetting the names of them at this point. So, but there is some great imagery there from Big Bear, the ground-based hydrogen alpha telescope there at Big Bear, California. And thanks to everybody who's joined us over on Twitter. That's what it looks like over on Twitter most of the time. So join us over there if you do the social media, and if you've unplugged entirely, we don't blame you. Anyway, here is some more imagery from Big Bear. We do have some more prominences there on both the eastern and western limbs. And let's get into bonus features. Bonus features. We used to make them into a separate video, but guess what that did? Lowered our views. People are like, hey, you should make your videos shorter. Guess what that did? Lowered our views on YouTube. So, here you go. We still do have shorts, by the way. So that's the past about 2.5 hours on the closest star. That ionized helium's. That's ionized helium's extreme ultraviolet emissions. And if you think that's CGI, well, it is. Ultraviolet light's not visible to the naked eye, so it has to be CGI. You wouldn't be able to see it even if you were in space. And if you're on the ground, you wouldn't even be able to see it with a UV scope because those wavelengths don't make it to the ground. They're filtered out by the time they make it to the mesosphere, I believe it is. So there you go, and it looks like there are possibly some more active regions about to rise in the east. Here come bonus features, starting with satellite charging hazards. We ain't got none. It is clear sailing for satellites. No high-energy electrons getting inside of, and no low-energy electrons building up on the outside of satellites. Goes electron flux here. Looks like it might have leveled out. It might have reached its peak, folks. There are the past 3 days of radiographic measurements by the GOES 16 and GOES 18, and there is the 1-year graph to contextualize it. So it can get higher, but it looks like it might not be about to do that. So another indication the coronal hole's high-speed stream is subsiding. NOAA's forecast was a little bit overdone there. NOAA is expecting it to be flatter for the next couple of days, and I would tend to agree. Next, we'll show the layer where that's measured. We're going to show one slice of the atmosphere, the F layer. It's at about 300 kilometers of altitude. And there is what's shaken at the bridge between Earth and space. So that is the F layer of the ionosphere. Here's the anomaly gram depicting anomaly in megahertz from a 30-day median. Nothing too special happening there. No geomagnetic storm conditions or anything like that. You can expect to see more blue on this as of tomorrow. There's the latest image, 2200 universal time for the ionogram and 2200 universal time anomalygram. Next, the whole atmosphere model depicting total electron content on the left, maximum usable frequency on the right. They could both be useful for GPS and radio operators. And those blotchy areas are bad for GPS users and good for radio users. Anyway, moving on to total electron content. Feel free to pause the video on this frame. Your GPS satellite's at about 12,500 miles of altitude, and here are the free electrons from it down to ground level. And there's missing data there, so let's just skip that entirely and go to the anomaly in total electron content from the 10-day average over North America. So that data looks legit. It's literally a count of free electrons to about 12,500 miles of altitude, and there are some high electron content anomalies happening there over North America. Actually, kind of recently. We'll let that play through one more time, and then we'll show the high image SDO, the high resolution SDO imagery. And there's the continuum. There is the magnetogram. Let's look at this sunspot first. It is Beta Gamma Delta class. So it is indeed capable of producing a large flare of M or even X class. This sunspot up here, that one is beta gamma class. That one's beta gamma delta class also. And it is becoming increasingly likely to produce a large flare as it grows and approaches the northwestern limb. Next, this group, and that's where the M-class flares have been coming from, although I suspect it is behind this group. So I suspect that's a beta gamma class sunspot, at least, probably beta gamma delta class. This one here, well, let's see. So that one's beta class. I don't want to say it's beta gamma class. It could be beta gamma class. No, that one's just beta class. This one back here, I suspect it's beta gamma delta class. It may be too early to tell for that. And this one up here is, whoops, that one is only alpha. No, that one's beta class too. There's a small trailing umbra there. So anyway, here's the full disk. Again, expecting sunspot number to rise a bit tomorrow nominally to about 140 to 150. And it's time to head to meteorology. So the first thing we're going to look at is sea surface temperatures. So check it out there, the sea surface temperatures. And a quick note. For any of you out there who are worried that the Beaufort Gyre is going to release as it starts to freeze up, notice how it's freezing solid. This is what it does in the wintertime. If melt season ends and the Beaufort Gyre hasn't released spookily, convincing people that Europe's going to see a year without a summer, it's not going to release. It's not going to do it as it freezes. That's not how things work. Anyway, we're going to look at sea surface temperature anomalies and surface winds to start out our meteorology segment. So these are the surface winds and sea surface temperature anomalies of the Atlantic Ocean. The north is anomalously warm and the south is anomalously cold. Here are the sea surface temperature anomalies and surface winds of the Southern Ocean. Anomalously cold all the way around. There's the Indian Ocean. A mixture of warm and hot. Here's the Pacific. A truly massive body of water. And last but not least, there is the Arctic. Anyway, it's time to get into the normal meteorology segments. We usually start out with a little bonus feature of some sort. Here is the surface wind scenario for the east. These are the jet streams of the east. The jet streams of the central world shown here. Surface winds of the central world shown here. A strong low south of Ireland. Here are the surface winds of the west. And Smash Staff told me to tell you to shut up that mutt. So those are the surface winds of the western world. Shout out to the Americas, the viewers from the central world, and the east side. There are the jet streams of the western world, the Americas. And moving right along, it's time to look at some satellite imagery. Yes, I love the visible satellite. It's so good, folks. As the sun sets over the Americas. It's springtime down there, and it's autumn up here. And it's kind of cold in the eastern U.S. So here we've actually centered this on State College, Pennsylvania. If you're familiar with Penn State, that is where Penn State main campus is located. It's someplace like around this area. And yeah, there's the visible satellite for the eastern portion of the U.S. And some very cold temperatures there in West Virginia. Check it out. Dag, 29 degrees in West Virginia there. That is on the chilly side. That's your temperature map from windy.com. And here's weather.gov's map. What do we have up there? Air quality alerts and air stagnation advisories in Idaho, Oregon, and Washington. And a bunch of hard freeze watches and warnings. Hard freeze warnings, I believe. Freeze warnings for large portions of the eastern U.S., including Georgia, Texas, Louisiana, Alabama, Mississippi, South Carolina, North Carolina, Virginia, Maryland, Delaware, Pennsylvania, New Jersey. That is a long line of cold temps. So let's break out some fresh forecasts here from tropicaltidbits.com. There you go, tropicaltidbits.com. Get your weather forecast there. Here's a 72-hour GFS pressure and precipitation first. Some heavy precipitation coming to the Pacific Northwest. Next, since it's going to create some flooding, here is the total accumulated precipitation forecast based on the same model, the GFS 72-hour. Some places expecting over 4 inches of rain there, so take heed. Next, the jet stream, which is largely in control of moving your weather from west to east, and also injecting warm air in the north and pulling cold air to the south. Or I guess you could say pushing. I guess it's technically pushing. So that's your jet stream forecast, and here is the temperature anomaly forecast. There you go. That is a temperature anomaly forecast in degrees Celsius. And it's going to mostly stay cold in the eastern U.S., although it will be subsiding. Keep in mind we are in November, so it's not going to be that warm, just not anomalously so cold. 72-hour GFS forecast in degrees Celsius. Next, lightning. Cuba had some lightning. The West Atlantic had some lightning. Central and South America had some lightning. That's the past 10 hours. And here is the real-time lightning map courtesy of blitzachtung.org, lightningmaps.org. Quite a bit of lightning in the Atlantic there. Also over Saudi Arabia, other portions of the Middle East. Portions of France and Italy also seeing some strikes. We're going to close out this video with U.S. Doppler radar, visible satellite, and water vapor map. There's the full 50-state view. Here is the lower 48 view. There is the visible satellite. And there is the water vapor map. Here's a recap. And thanks for tuning in. Once again, congratulations on realizing the channel exists. Don't forget to press all of the things, leave a comment, tell your friends and foes about us. We'll see you soon. In the meantime, I'll have been your host, Dan, a.k.a. Smash-O-Mash, signing off. And may that solar wind be at your back.